Hey guys, how's it going? So today in this video we're going to take a look at a new streaming amplifier I just got. This is the Marantz Model M1. This was released recently by Marantz, which is a Japanese American company. I call it a Japanese American because originally the roots started in America, but most of their engineering is actually done in Japan. And I believe this model is actually built in Shirakawa, Japan, which is kind of rare, you know, for electronics to be actually made in Japan. They're usually made in China. Right, so yeah, I was looking for a new streaming amp to replace my current one, which is the Yamaha WXA50. Now this one is a pretty solid amp. I've been using it for the past few years. I like it because it was pretty affordable. It's built really well. Sounds pretty nice, like pretty decent. It's got a reasonably neutral sound and has a decent amount of inputs and also doesn't take up too much space. But you know, I always thought, you know, what if there's something that sounded a little bit better, you know, or had HDMI ARC, because I want to hook it up to my TV. This doesn't have HDMI ARC because this amplifier came out in 2016. This just came out last year, 2024. So this one has HDMI ARC and then some newer features that my Yamaha doesn't have. So yeah, we're going to compare these two, and then we're also going to take a look at some new speakers that I got too. So I'm going to compare some new MartinLogan speakers that I got and then compare it to my old MartinLogan speakers, okay? So first, let's start off with the unboxing of the Marantz M1 here. So this retail price for this amp, by the way, is $1,000 US, which is, you know, it's not the most expensive streaming amplifier, but it's definitely not the cheapest either, right? You can easily get something like a Weem Pro for much cheaper. So for that price, I expect to have better sound quality compared at least to my WXA50, because this costs $650 US when it was first released. Anyways, this costs more than my Yamaha, so I would expect for it to sound better. Also, it's a fairly small amplifier too, and it's fairly light. That's part of what drew me to this amplifier. Now, I did a previous video actually with the Cyrus 1 cast, which I thought would replace the Yamaha, but it didn't end up replacing the Yamaha because, first of all, it was quite a bit heavier and bulkier. The user interface wasn't quite as good. I mean, it did sound better than the Yamaha, but the user interface wasn't quite as good, took up more space, and also it didn't work well with my Google Home setup. So one of the things that the Cyrus Audio, which is a British brand, they advertised the Cyrus 1 cast as being, you know, compatible with your Google Home setup, but it wasn't, I couldn't get it working. So anyways, for a variety of reasons, even though it sounded pretty good, I ended up returning the Cyrus 1 cast, so I'm still looking for a replacement for my Yamaha. But yeah, one of the reasons why I was looking at the Marantz M1 is, first of all, I'm fairly familiar with Marantz because I've owned two Marantz receivers before, which I was pretty satisfied with. And then this one just came out recently, and it looks like it doesn't take up too much space. It doesn't even have like one of those fancy displays that nowadays you see streaming amplifiers have, right? Nowadays you look at Cambridge Audio or NAD or Eversolo, right, this popular Chinese brand. They all have like this little cool, actually even Roark Audio is making them too. They have this little cool you know, interface on the amps, and Rotel as well. So everyone's getting into the streaming amplifier game. They all have like nice little touch screens and everything, but I don't really need that because I actually stream most of my music from my digital audio player, which already has a screen. So I don't really need to have a screen on the player, and the Marantz does not. It just has a fairly simple interface here, and it looks pretty small. So anyways, yeah, that's part of the reason why I went for the Model M1, because I did like the fact that the Yamaha was so light and so compact and sounded nice. Hopefully the Marantz can be just like that, except it sounds, you know, better and has EARC support. So I don't know what HDMI standards it supports. It doesn't say which version of HDMI. The Bluetooth, it says it's Bluetooth 4.2, which is a little bit behind. 5.4 is actually the newest version of Bluetooth, so that's a little bit behind. Otherwise, it supports, yeah, HEOS is the streaming technology that Marantz and Denon use. So yeah, if you've ever bought a Denon or Marantz receiver, you have to download an app called HEOS. It's not the best streaming platform. I think people realize that BlueOS is probably better, although in my experience I haven't had good success with BlueOS either. But yeah, HEOS is fine. I've used it. It's pretty simple. Basic, I guess, but it works. It does its job. Compared to Yamaha's MusicCast, Yamaha has a similar technology called MusicCast, which also does similar thing to HEOS. They're both roughly comparable in my experience. Yamaha is also fairly basic and simple too, but they both do their job fairly well, I think. So it's not like a big difference between the interface between these two. I think HEOS and MusicCast are roughly you know, equivalent. Some people might say, oh, MusicCast might be a little bit better, but for me, they both do their job fine. SoundCloud support is interesting. Don't see that too much. But yeah, you have your rest of Wi-Fi streaming services and online music services, right? Amazon Music HD, Spotify, Deezer, Tidal, iHeartRadio, Pandora. I don't use most of these actually. SiriusXM, AirPlay. Yeah, that's all supported. Doesn't seem to have Chromecast, huh? Be nice if it had Chromecast, but it does not have Chromecast. Anyways, let's take a look at the unboxing here. I believe it is this way. Okay. All right. See what you got, Marantz. By the way, Marantz was just recently bought by Samsung. So those of you guys who don't know, Marantz is originally American, like I said, but they've been Japanese owned for a while, and then they were bought by a whole bunch of different companies. They were part of the same parent company as Denon for a very long time, and now they've both been bought by Samsung recently, along with Polk Audio and Definitive Tech and some other companies. We'll see. Hopefully their quality does not fall. So anyways, the box comes with the power cord, obviously, American power cord. Marantz here has the quick start guide. I'm just going to take a brief look at what's inside this quick start guide here. Okay. Marantz usually charges like kind of a premium for their amplifiers and receivers. I think part of it is the presentation. They always have a pretty nice presentation. So we do have a wireless streaming amplifier guide right here. And let's take a look at this before you begin. So unpack, place, connect, control. So it's pretty simple. It's like step one, you know, add the device, unbox your device. I mean, yeah, unpack, obviously, right? You have to unpack to even get to this manual, and then connect it, and then usually these kind of things are light. They just tell you to download this app, which is what this basically does. Nowadays, gone are the days of huge manuals, right? Because you just use your phone to download it. Okay, so HEOS, like I said, is Marantz and Denon's kind of proprietary, I think, streaming platform. But I'm familiar with it because I have a Marantz Cinema 60 receiver already. 5-year warranty. Is that above average or about average, I think, for amplifiers? Yeah. I would have liked a Rotel amplifier like this too, because I have good experience with Rotel, but I don't think they make something this size in this price range. They do have a stream amplifier, but it's quite a bit more expensive, and it's kind of a heavy-duty one. Okay, so here we go. This is pretty much brand new. I bought it from eBay for $700, and it's pretty much brand new, so I think I saved a good amount here. And Marantz stuff, same thing as Cinema. My Cinema 60, I saved a bunch of money too, and it's almost brand new. So here's the amplifier. It is bigger than my Yamaha, but it's still compact reasonably. Oh, it comes with an optical cable. Okay, cool. It comes with an optical cable, guys. For what that's worth, I don't need that, but I'm probably going to use HDMI ARC. But yeah, good that it comes with that. That's it in the box. Cool. Yeah, it did not come with it did not come with the HDMI, but it comes with an optical cable. That's interesting. Okay, let's take a look here. So you can see the size differences between the Yamaha WXA50 and the Marantz Model M1 here. The Yamaha is still smaller. You can see that the Marantz is just a little bit taller here. I mean, it's actually maybe double the size, but the overall footprint is about the same size. Like if I stack the Yamaha on top of the Marantz, you can see that overall they're the same dimensions. It's just that the Model M1 is like twice the height. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But it's still reasonably compact. You know, got similar dimensions and everything. It's got this like textured top, which is pretty interesting. Textured top here. What's also interesting, now I just saw this. Nothing. So this is the underside of the WXA50, right? There's nothing there. On the top side, there's just like a heat vent right here. But the Model M1 here, interestingly, has a tripod mount on the bottom. So I guess you could put this on a tripod stand if you want. I mean, it's light enough to put on a tripod stand, I guess. Yeah, we can put on a tripod stand. And guess what? Yes, this says made in Japan on it. So it's actually, this model is made in Japan. Yeah, made in Japan, which is pretty cool, right? You don't see too many electronic devices these days that are actually made in Japan, right? Mostly they're made in China or Taiwan or whatever. Sony makes most of their devices in Malaysia. So anyways, yeah, the specifications of this amp and the I/O, let's go over that. So 100 watts per channel, that is a bit of an upgrade over the Yamaha here. This one's only 70 watts per channel. And then if you look at the I/O here, for the most part they're similar. Look at the I/O here. Okay, so if you look at the I/O for the Yamaha, you have your normal aux in and out, and then you have a USB input here, wireless on-off switch, trigger in and out, your AC plug, your optical in, Ethernet, and a subwoofer out, and then remote in, and then you have your speaker terminals right here. So these are your connections right here for the Yamaha WXA50. And on the front, it's pretty simple. One of the reasons I love the WXA50 is the simplistic interface, something that the Cyrus Audio I think was a little bit not so good on, because the input switching was not very obvious. Yeah, this one, Yamaha, first of all, the one thing is the volume dial knob doesn't tell me how many steps it has. That's why my one criticism is I wish they had steps for the volume control. It does not. But you have indicator lights for the status of it being on and off. The different input that it has. So if you're on like optical input versus aux input versus Wi-Fi versus Bluetooth, it will flash a different color. And this will have Bluetooth on and the network, which is MusicCast, if it's connected or not. And then you have a simple connect button to play, pause. And then you have this button to kind of switch between inputs, and this is the power button right here. And this is actually just the IR button for the remote. One thing I noticed that the Marantz M1 does not come with a remote. There's no remote for this one, huh? This one doesn't come with a remote. But yeah, the Yamaha came with a remote. And I always accidentally end up pressing this button. It's actually not a button, it's just for the remote. This is actually the power button right here. But yeah, overall, I do like the interface of the Yamaha, just I wish the volume dial had steps. But it's still kind of like an analog thing, which is nice. The Marantz does not have any kind of volume dial. It just has this touch control for the volume. So you have, I'm not sure if I like this better. I think I prefer to have the analog rotary dial of the Yamaha. But this one can go up or down. You know, you just got to touch it and play pause right here. And that's really it. They kept the front really simple. And I wonder actually how you're supposed to switch the. Where's even the power button actually? Yeah, no wonder. Where is even the power button? Because you just have the play, pause, and the volume controls. No power button and no input switching, huh? I guess I'll have to find that out. Yeah. And on the back, okay, so we talked about the Yamaha's I/O already. Let's look at the Marantz. So the Marantz Model M1 has the connect button right here. I think it's connecting it to your network wirelessly. AC right here, your flasher, your IR in right there, which is pretty much what the remote one is there. Subwoofer out, which is basically a dedicated pre-out just for subwoofers. Optical in, there's your HDMI eARC out right here, and your USB in, yeah, and your line in. So yeah, I mean HDMI in here. So yeah, got optical in, eARC in, USB, your Ethernet, and your line in and your subwoofer out. So yeah, and here's your speaker terminals. So for the most part, the I/O is roughly equivalent. The only difference is that, from what I can see, this one has trigger inputs, the Yamaha, and the Marantz does not have any trigger inputs. Other than that, this one has a Wi-Fi switch, actually Wi-Fi and Bluetooth switch, in case you really care about that, but I always leave it in the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on mode. This one doesn't have that. This one obviously has eARC, which is something that my Yamaha does not have. That's one of the reasons why I'm trying to upgrade from my Yamaha. It doesn't have eARC. Marantz have it. Okay. Otherwise, the other inputs are the same. Oh yeah, Bluetooth. You have a Bluetooth little button right here as well. So yeah, that's basically the I/O differences between the two right here. I noticed also that this one doesn't seem to have the Bluetooth antenna. Yeah, my Yamaha does have this Bluetooth antenna. You guys can see jutting up from the back here. That's a Bluetooth antenna. The Marantz does not have that, but still has Bluetooth. So anyways, the main difference that matters to me is that the Marantz has eARC support. And it has the rest of the controls that I like too. I do need to have analog in and optical in as well. yeah, and network, you know, Ethernet. So yeah, we're going to test this out with different speakers. I'm going to be using first my old speakers, which is the MartinLogan Motion 15s, and then we'll compare them against my new MartinLogans, which is the MartinLogan Motion B1s, B10s actually. Yeah, the MartinLogan Motion B10s. So those are the new MartinLogan speakers I'll be demonstrating as well, and we'll talk a bit about that too. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, overall, I think the Marantz is actually lighter. The Yamaha is just very, very solidly built. This is all like, this is very solid aluminum and everything. It's actually heavier. So the Yamaha is actually heavier. The Marantz is actually lighter, but the Marantz is, you know, taller in height. But otherwise, similar footprint. Yeah, be comparing these two kind of compact streaming amplifiers, both Japanese. Essentially, Marantz is Japanese because they have Japanese engineering made in Japan. So yeah, we'll see differences, and I'll be using HEOS on the Marantz versus MusicCast on the Yamaha. We'll be playing the same tracks and comparing them, so stay tuned. Alright, so now I have the Marantz Model M1 and the Yamaha WXA50 hooked up and turned on. I just want to say a few things about the usability of these devices. Now that I've kind of set both of them up. So first of all, yeah, the Yamaha WXA50 is just way easier to set up because first of all, it has a physical on button here, and you can just quickly adjust the input here. Like if I want to switch to, if I want to switch to just aux input, hey, I know the white one is aux, I can just switch to that by pressing input button, or I can use the remote as well. Bluetooth is blue, as you would expect. Green is MusicCast, which is Wi-Fi streaming, and then it has optical, right, and other inputs as well. So it's just easy to do that. With the Marantz, it's a little bit more harder because like you don't have a physical input switch button. You actually have to go into HEOS and then select the source. And also the Marantz doesn't even have a physical on button. As far as I know, you can't even turn it off. You actually just have to unplug the Marantz, which is kind of dumb in my opinion. Like, what kind of device in 2024, 2025 doesn't have a physical on-off switch? Like, is the only way to turn it off really just to unplug it? Like, that's crazy, right? So yeah, just the usability of these devices. Plus, not to mention the rotary dial. I prefer the rotary dial of the Yamaha better, right? Even if I don't know what volume, it doesn't have the volume steps, but at least it has something I can physically control. Marantz doesn't have volume steps either, right? So I don't know exactly how far it goes either, but I have to physically, like press it here, but it's like a touchscreen, so a little bit more annoying to do, right? So I don't like this touch thing as much as having just the tactile feel of pressing these actual buttons. See, I can actually press like, oh, play and pause, right? I can just press it here. I get the tactile sensation of using the knobs, right? So yeah, that's a good thing that the Yamaha has, is it has these the physical controls. The Marantz has these touch controls, which are a little bit more. For me, I don't like touch controls as much. I find them more finicky. So I do prefer the controls on the Yamaha better. So when it comes to the apps, when I said that HEOS and MusicCast were about the same, I don't think that I had a clear memory, because HEOS, it's been like a year since I used HEOS, because I tested it a bit when I was setting up the Marantz Cinema 60 receiver in my living room, but I haven't really used it that much since, because it's mostly been used for gaming and watching movies and stuff. So yeah, now that I've installed HEOS and MusicCast on my Sony Walkman, this is going to be my main streaming device, by the way. I've already done a video on it. It's a very small device, but supports a lot of Bluetooth codecs, and it runs Android, so I can install my apps on it. So I have MusicCast and HEOS installed on it, okay? Let me tell you, MusicCast is a lot easier to use, a lot more user-friendly, okay? Look, so MusicCast, I go in here. It will automatically find my Yamaha because I already set it up. But this is what the home screen for the MusicCast looks like, okay? It actually has a power button, so I can turn off my Yamaha from here, or I can turn it on, right? That just works. I can use this as a remote control if I wanted to. So the good thing about MusicCast is it directly, I can turn on and off the Yamaha amp. Even if I don't have a remote control, I can just use this, right? So just to find a track and play it, I'll just go through the steps, okay? So I have this, my phone, which is basically my Walkman, which has an SD card with all my music hooked up as a source. So I just go into this, and if I want to find a piece of music, so let's say I want to find How Deep Is Your Love. So I just press How Deep Is, I'll just press how deep actually, and it'll go in and then it'll find these songs here. Oh, look, I have 7 songs, I have 1 album. Okay, and yeah, it's, if I want to play How Deep Is Your Love, and I press it and it plays it. See, easy, simple, right? I have the volume controls, I have the play pause, easy to find my songs on MusicCast. And I can go through like playlist, artist, or whatever. If I want to filter it further, genres, songs, folder, right? I can go like that, but easy. Now let's try it with HEOS. Okay, so go to HEOS here. Now you have to set up the Marantz M1 with HEOS basically. So it's got a search for device. Okay, it found Marantz M1. Okay, so it has my recently played songs, but it also has my favorite station, music services. So I just want to do the same thing. First of all, I can't turn on and off the Marantz M1 using HEOS the way I can do with my Yamaha with the MusicCast. So there's no like turning on and off. I can't use this as a remote control for the Marantz M1, unfortunately. HEOS doesn't do that. So I had to go scroll all the way down because first it asks for this music services, which I don't really use. It has trending, top 40 pop music. I don't care about this stuff. I have to basically scroll through that. Okay, then I go to sources, go to this phone, right? I already add this phone as a source. And then it says artists, albums, genres, tracks, or playlists. I'm going to go to tracks. Actually, I'm going to search here. And let's do the same thing. How Deep Is Your Love? Okay, just how deep. And then first, I don't know why they do this, but they prioritize tune in, and then it'll go basically like this will not prioritize your phone. So I have to go to tracks here, and then I can find it on my phone, and then it doesn't list all of them. It only lists the top 3. If I want to find all of them, I got to press more, and then I find all of them. So then I can do okay, I played this one, and then I'll play it. And then this interface is a lot simpler than the one on MusicCast, right? Actually, even basic controls like play, pause, next, previous track, you can't even find that here. Like, I don't even know how to pause a song. I have to actually go to my Marantz and then press the pause button in order to pause it. Isn't that bizarre and stupid? Like, the most basic music players would have play, pause, next track, previous track. This HEOS app doesn't even have that. At least it's not obvious how to make the song even pause or stop. So yeah, it's a huge usability issue in my opinion. Some of the most basic functionality you expect out of a music player, playing, pausing, next, previous track, like you can't even find that easily on this now playing screen. I can switch back to the one in MusicCast, and you can take a look at this interface. Yeah, see here on MusicCast how you can play, pause, and go to the next track, previous track, adjust your volume, right? All those things, like basic stuff that you can do on most music players. But here, go back to HEOS. Can't seem to do that. So anyways, I think MusicCast does have a leg up on HEOS, so I was a bit mistaken there. Yeah, HEOS, definitely the interface is not that great. I have to go through a few more steps. Yeah, it seems like it promotes music services over local files, and then yeah, it's a little bit more annoying to get to the tracks I want basically. So yeah, so that's just the FYI, guys. HEOS versus MusicCast. HEOS interface isn't quite as good. If we go to MusicCast, it's just a better interface. I can even turn on and off the amplifier and use this as a remote if I wanted to. So I think MusicCast is a better app. So that's just a little FYI before I start doing the comparison. Okay, so I'm going to play the same tracks on both of these using MusicCast and HEOS respectively. And then, yeah, we'll compare the sound quality, see if the Marantz M1 does sound better. So first, the speakers I'll be using are my old speakers, the MartinLogan Motion 15s, by the way. And I'll keep the speakers and the cables and stuff all the same. The cable's a Kimber cable, 8VS, pretty decent cable. Everything is kept the same except for the amplifier, okay? And I'll try to volume match the two as well, so they, keep them roughly at the same volume for each amp. Okay, so let's start. that was a comparison of the Marantz M1 versus the Yamaha WXA50. I don't know how well you guys can hear that difference. To me, to my ears, the M1 sounded a bit more dynamic, more lively, a little bit more detail, and a little warmer. But that's not to say the WXA50 doesn't sound good. I mean, it's still a really good sounding amplifier, especially for the price. The M1 does seem to beat it a little bit in sound quality in my for me anyways. Yeah, just from what I heard. Yeah, just a little bit more livelier and more dynamic and a little bit warmer in general. Yeah, and a little bit more detailed too, I think. But the problem with the Marantz M1 is the usability issue, I think. So yeah, the Yamaha, I just prefer the usability of the Yamaha. The physical controls of the Yamaha, right, the volume dial and the input switches and the physical buttons, the on-off switch, that's all there on the Yamaha. On the Marantz M1, it's like you barely get any controls. You get these touch controls on the front, which I don't like as much as tactile controls anyways, but at least give me a on-off button. It doesn't have an on-off button at all, and it doesn't have an input switcher button. So I have to go through HEOS basically to switch the input, which is annoying because, as I've mentioned before, earlier in this video, HEOS is not a good app compared to MusicCast. MusicCast is just a better app in terms of the user interface. So that's another problem. I don't like using HEOS, but you have to use HEOS. Yeah, that's pretty much the TLDR for me, is that, yes, the M1 does sound a little bit better, but the user interface, the overall interface, the controls of the M1 and HEOS, I don't like as much as the Yamaha. And MusicCast, I just prefer over HEOS. So, bit of a tough one for me, actually. It's almost like with the Cyrus, right? The Cyrus One Cast sounded better than the Yamaha. I just didn't like the user interface as much, and yeah, it just yeah, I think that's always been the issue here. The Yamaha, even though there's like better sounding amps, this has always been so simple and easy to use. It's hard to find a replacement for it. Anyways, yeah, so I have similar feelings with the Marantz M1 as I did with the Cyrus One Cast. Basically, it's not quite as heavy or bulky as the Cyrus, but user interface issues, you know. That's the problem, user interface issues. I mean, if you're going to be using an amp, I don't like the fact that there's no physical on or an off button. Like, you can't put that on the amp here. I don't know. And then using HEOS, yeah, it's not fun to use HEOS, actually. Maybe because yeah, I guess I haven't used HEOS for a while, but man, when I first started using it compared to MusicCast, I've been using MusicCast a lot more. Yeah, the HEOS is, yeah, MusicCast is definitely superior in the user interface compared to HEOS. So, yeah. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the amp comparison. At least the Marantz has HDMI eARC, which is something. The Cyrus also had that as well, though. But, yeah, my verdict is I feel the same way about the Marantz M1 as I did about the Cyrus One Cast in that review. It sounds good, better than the Yamaha, but the user interface matters, right? And that's where I have to dock at some points. So yeah, just the usability of the device is not as good as the Yamaha. I just feel like the Yamaha is just so simple and easy to use. So a couple other things to note is that the Marantz M1, yeah, it doesn't have any room correction. So if you're looking for room correction, this one doesn't have it. I know a couple other streamers around this price range might have it, but this one doesn't. Yamaha doesn't either, but this is an older streamer. This is a fairly new streamer, it just came out last year, and yeah, no room correction provided, around the $1,000 price range. No headphone out as well, you can't listen to it with headphones. There's also no preamp out as well. If you notice that there is no aux out here, whereas the Yamaha actually does have an aux out. So Yamaha has an aux out in addition to a subwoofer out, whereas the Marantz M1 does not have any aux out, so you can't actually use this as a preamp, unfortunately. The wire mesh grill here looks really cool, but it's actually serving a function. So when these amps play a lot of music and stuff, it does heat up. So yeah, this is acting as ventilation as well. There's also vents on the bottom too. So yeah, vents on the bottom and on top. So I think this effectively dissipates heat well, because it does heat up, but it never heats up too much. Whereas the Yamaha I feel like it heats up a little bit too much sometimes. It doesn't have enough grills. It has like this little bit on the top, some on the side, but yeah, these will adequately dissipate the heat, but it still feels really hot to the touch. Maybe because it's aluminum. This one is not aluminum. It just doesn't feel as hot as the Yamaha. So there's a few other things to add here. Overall, it's a pretty tough choice for me. It's kind of like when I had to choose between the Cyrus 1 Cast versus the Yamaha in my previous video. Like the Cyrus did sound better. It's, yeah, a more expensive streamer. It should sound better. But the usability, right, that was an issue. I couldn't use the Google Assistant thing well with it, even though that's one of the things that it advertised. It was hard to see what input it was on, especially because the icons, they only used the icons and it was so small, hard to see. So yeah, a lot of the usability issues, I think that's the issue with the Cyrus. I ended up just keeping the Yamaha. This is the same thing, like the Marantz, there's some things I like about it, right? I like the fact that it's still compact, right? Still the same footprint and everything. And it does sound a little bit better, right? It's got the typical Marantz warmth to it and a little bit more detail, a little bit more dynamic, right? Kind of like the Cyrus in that sense as well. So it does sound a bit better. It does have the HDMI e-arc, which my Yamaha doesn't have. It has more power. It has 100 watts. The Yamaha only has 70. So this can drive, the speaker is a little bit better. Even though my MartinLogans doesn't take too much to drive, they're just bookshelf speakers, they're not towers or anything. So my Yamaha can drive them fine, but my Marantz will drive it better. This is 100 watts. But there's also a lot of things I don't like about it, right? I don't like the fact that it only has these 3 touch buttons on the front, which I don't like as much. Just the play, pause, and the volume controls. I would prefer having these more analog tactile controls on the front. The volume dial along with the discrete buttons here. Like just having the buttons here, more tactile feeling. I don't even know, like the inputs, you can't even change it here, right? You have to use the HEOS app to change the inputs. And there's no on button or off button. Like everything is done basically through the HEOS app, unless you want to just do the basic functionality like volume and play pause. But even then, it doesn't feel as good as using the rotary dial on the Yamaha or using the physical buttons on the Yamaha. So I don't like that. I also don't like the HEOS app in general. I feel like it's clunky, it's cluttered, it's hard to use compared to MusicCast, which is what Yamaha uses. So there's a usability issue there. It's also missing a few features compared to the Yamaha, like the pre-out. And if you care about that, there's a trigger in and out on the Yamaha that's not on the Marantz. So yeah, there's a few features. Oh yeah, the remote. So yeah, the fact is the Yamaha did come with a remote, the Marantz does not. Not having a remote means that, yeah, basically I think they want you to use the HEOS app as your remote. So yeah, you could always use your HEOS app, but it's always nice to have a physical remote, right? That's not your phone. For me, I use the remote on my Yamaha quite a bit. So yeah, it's annoying to have to go to my phone, open up the HEOS app, especially like, I'm using my phone for a lot of things, right? So using it as a remote, I guess it makes sense, but it's also nice just to have, dedicated remote as well. So anyways, there are things I like about this Marantz, but there's also a few things that bother me about it in terms of the convenience. So anyways, gonna be a hard choice for me. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, the Marantz versus the Yamaha. But yeah, that's it for comparing these two amps. Anyways, done with the amp comparison. Let's take a look at the speakers, okay? So like I said, these are the MartinLogan Motion 15s. So for those of you guys who don't know, MartinLogan is an American speaker company. They've been in business since the 1980s, and they're most well known for electrostatic speakers, which are usually quite expensive. Their most popular line and more affordable line is the Motion series, which is what I have here, which are a little bit more conventional, except for the tweeter. I'll get to that later. These are originally they came out in 2012. So these speakers are fairly old. I bought this a few years ago, but these are kind of old speakers. And they've been updated 2 times since then. Once in 2019 with the MartinLogan 15Is, which actually didn't really update them that much. It was just like, I think it changed the cone on the mid-range woofer a little bit. So they just changed the cone on the woofer a bit, and that was pretty much it. I don't think they really did too much for the 15Is. But MartinLogan a couple years ago, like maybe 2 years ago, I think, released a new set of speakers called the B10s, which are the direct replacement, and they also released a new line called the Foundation line, which provides even better value. So I pretty much just went for the straight up replacement, the B10s, and usually they're fairly expensive. The B10s retail for what, about $1,000 US total. Yeah, because they're about 500 bucks each. With MartinLogan's, you got to buy the bookshelf separately instead of together as a pair. So yeah, they're about 1,000 bucks US total. But I got them on sale for, yeah, for about, both of them pretty much 50% off, like 500 bucks. So at that price, I couldn't pass it up, right? It was such a good deal. I was like, I was looking to upgrade my MartinLogan Motion 15 speakers. Might as well upgrade them to the newer B10s, right? And if I can get them on such a good deal, just 500 bucks for both of them, that's like half price, then why not, right? So we're going to compare these to the MartinLogan Motion B10s as well. Okay, so let me give you guys a spec rundown of both. Okay, so the specs of the MartinLogan Motion 15s, remember these were released back in 2012 for 800 bucks for both of them. Yeah, so take a look at the tweeter. They're known for their tweeters, which uses AMT technology. That stands for Air Motion Transformer. And personally, I think that speaker manufacturers kind of overemphasize the tweeter technology, because the tweeter only is responsible for producing the very high frequencies, which normally when you're listening to a song, the higher frequencies, like it's only like a small fraction of the song. Most of the song is going to be in the mid-range or in the bass. So actually, most manufacturers kind of overemphasize the how important then the tweeter is, the technologies they use in the tweeter, because most of the sound you're hearing is actually going to be coming from the woofer. But anyways, yes, MartinLogan is known for their folded motion tweeters, which is basically using air motion transformer technology. They say this is superior to other tweeter technologies like dome tweeters, and dome tweeters is pretty much the standard, because normally when you buy a bookshelf speaker, it's going to come with a like silk dome tweeter or aluminum tweeter, either a soft dome or a hard dome tweeter. Air motion transformer is on some speakers, like Wharfdale has it on their Evos. ELAC has some on their Jet tweeter, which I also did a review on before. There's a few companies that have the air motion transformers. Golden Ear has it as well. So MartinLogan is one of the few speaker companies that always have the air motion transformer on all their speakers. It's kind of what they're known for. But the Motion 15s, these have 1 by 1.4 inch folded motion tweeters. So AMTs are known for having like a wider area to disperse the sound compared to a dome tweeter. In my experience, I think that the detail may be a little bit better, but you're talking about minor differences here. Dome tweeters still sound really good, of course, depending on the implementation. So it's not like one technology is always better. Okay, the woofer for the Motion 15 is 5.25 inch aluminum cone with cast basket, and it uses a Vochco crossover, which is their term for their crossover technology. And MartinLogan has to stress that as well. Some speaker manufacturers stress the crossover technology. I think it depends on the implementation and the design, more so than the materials of the crossover. But anyways, that's how designed. If you look at the back, they're rear ported, just like most bookshelf speakers are. No bi-wiring or bi-amping, just one set of terminals. But yeah, to me they're fairly decent. I've been using them in my home theater setup for many years. But yeah, let's take a look at the newer MartinLogans. Okay, so these are the Motion 15s, and let's see how much better the newer ones are. Okay, so alright, so I have the B10s here, Motion B10s, which are pretty much the direct replacement for the Motion 15Is, which were the last iteration here. So I got these on sale for 500 bucks. They're not exactly new condition, but yeah, I still think they still look okay. At least this one looks really good. This one has a couple of more noticeable scratches and stuff, but it's still fine. Nothing too major. So, okay, let's take a look at the B10 specs, okay? So the B10, first of all, retails for 1,000 bucks for both of them, so a little bit more than the Motion 15, but maybe it's not more if you account for inflation. So the tweeter is a different tweeter. It uses a newer generation, so it's a 1 by 1.4 inch, so same dimensions, but it's a Gen 2 Obsidian folded motion tweeter. What you'll notice here is that there is a waveguide on this tweeter. So the Motion 15s did not have a waveguide, so the Motion B10s use a waveguide. So that's a little bit different. Also, it's a new generation tweeter as well. yeah, excited to hear how these ones are going to perform. And the woofer is a bit different too. So the Motion 15s used a 5.25 inch aluminum woofer. These ones use a 5.5 inch woven fiberglass cone with a cast polymer basket. So yeah, different technology for the woofer. It's also a little bit, the driver is also a little bit bigger. So it's 5.5 inch instead of 5.25 inch. And if you look at the back, they're still rear ported. There's still single terminals, no bi-wiring or bi-amping here. What you'll also notice is that the woofer always has this covering or grill over it, and there's no overall grill for the B10s. So they did not come with another grill. The Motion 15s did come with a grill, but the B10s did not. So that's fine. I usually use my grills off, but that's just something to note, that the B10s do not come with a grill. So the crossover design is updated as well. It's not called a Vodko crossover, it's called a McCracken Vodko crossover. So they added a new designer or engineer guy on the crossover, I guess. So yeah, that's the difference in technology here. Mostly you get a Generation 2 tweeter with a waveguide, and then for the woofer you get a slightly bigger driver and a different material, fiberglass instead of aluminum. So yeah, let's see how these ones are like. Keep in mind that there's a foundation MartinLogan speakers as well. These are not the foundation ones. These are just the the Motion ones. So these are more the direct replacement. I think MartinLogan created the foundation line as kind of an even cheaper way to get into their speaker lineup. But these are not the foundations, yeah. The foundations also use a smaller tweeter, I believe, as well, in different materials on the woofer. Okay. And these also weigh a bit more too, 14.5 pounds. The Motion 15s weighed about 12 pounds, so these weigh about 2.5 pounds more. So that's another thing to keep in mind here. Okay, so right, let's test out these speakers. So first we're gonna play the music. I'm actually gonna be using, might as well use the Marantz M1 since I have it here. So I'm gonna be using the Marantz model M1 with the older Motion 15s, and then I'm gonna be using the B10s, and then you guys can see the difference. And same cables, you know, everything else looks the same. Amp is going to be kept the same with the M1. Only difference you'll be hearing is the speaker differences. Yeah, the Motion 15s versus the Motion B10s, which is 2 generations newer. Yeah, let's see if you guys can hear a difference for that. All right, stay tuned. Alright, so yeah, let me know what differences you guys heard. For me, the differences between speakers I think are a bit more noticeable than between amps, so I definitely heard a difference. I do think that the B10s have a deeper bass, and the trebles and the mids are better separated. I think the trebles a little bit more accentuated, a little bit more detail, micro detail is better. Dynamics and everything are improved with the B10 compared to the 15s. But anyways, this is from what I heard. You guys might have a different subjective opinion. But anyways, let me know what you guys think of the Marantz M1 and the MartinLogan B10s in the comment section below. And yeah, as always, thanks for watching.